something. I'm super excited about today's rant because it's official. We're not talking about Donald J. Trump or President Biden. And let me tell you something. We have to dig really super deep to find things in the world to talk about. And let me tell you something. When you want to mix Kiev, Russia, and Van Jones and combine it into a 15-minute podcast, guys, let me tell you something. We've got this. Welcome, everybody, to the Rant Network. My name is Stuart Brisgell, and my co-host, David Solomon, is always sitting on my other side as we peel back the layers on a multitude of topics without holding back. Remember, this is a podcast. It's kind of like a blog, but video and audio. As we dive into this current event and other events of pop culture, politics, and quirks of existence, whether it's venting over daily life frustrations, we have that all the time, or tackling the bigger questions that shape our world. There is a place for all this under the Rant Network. So get comfortable, sit back, relax as we dive in. Now, as David's going to get into the details about these double standards, that's something that I've been ranting about for 3.5 years. Rules for me and not for thee. I mean, if you could take all of our podcasts and put them through AI and find how many times I actually have said that, it would be mind-blowing. But not as mind-blowing as taking Kiev, Russia, Israel, and Van Jones and being Jewish and black and putting all under one umbrella. Man, David's got his work cut out for you. Now,
well, thanks, Stuart, for throwing you like that.
Under the bus, baby.
Under the bus, baby. All right, folks. Look, let me just tell you something. This morning, woke up. Russian missiles hit Children's Hospital in Kyiv as Ukrainian President Zelensky vows retaliation. And I'm sitting here since I got up this morning. Where are the UN resolutions? Stuart, where is the condemnation on a global scale? Where are the encampments? Where are the protests on the streets? Where are the rallies? Where's the outcry of death to Russians in the cities? Where is the protest? Where are the Ukrainian flags in front of the Russian embassy, in front of Greek or Russian Orthodox temples or whatever? Where is all this anti-Russian sentiment? Oh, yeah. That doesn't happen. That didn't happen. 31 people were killed. Children. It's a children's hospital. When Israel were claimed to kill children in a hospital and whatever, Guterres, the UN Secretary General, lost his shit and went after Israel. And others went after Israel. How dare they? How dare they? How dare they? And yet, look at this. Russia does it. And you can hear the crickets again. Folks, it makes me ill to know again and again and again. This happens again. The double standard. As Stuart likes to say, rules for thee and not for me. And again, it's the further proof of anti-Semitism that continues to spin again and again and again. Now, for a while, we've been hearing comments like, again, you Jews start up. Again, you Jews bring up the Holocaust. Again, you Jews do this. And again, we are accused of all these type of things. But it's interesting, Stuart, because you brought up Van Jones. And I'll tell you, Van Jones, not my favorite guy. Van Jones, I don't agree with a lot of philosophies. I'm not a fan of his. But you can only imagine my shock when a friend sends me on Instagram, check this out, from Van Jones. And Van Jones brings up a really incredible statement. You would never see Israeli flags in front of a mosque. You don't see the rally of Jews yelling for death to Muslims. You don't see Jews standing in front of mosques or Muslim community centers preventing them from going in. You don't see Jewish students blocking Muslim students to going to universities or to classes. You don't see Jews spitting on Muslims. You don't see that. What Van Jones brought up was very interesting. He called out the double standard. He was the one who said, the world is filled with double standards. And the double standard is that nothing that is happening on the streets in the United States is helping the people of Palestine. It's not helping the people of Gaza. Going to block Jews from going to a Los Angeles synagogue, which nobody got any recrimination, by the way. It went, nobody got anything, of course. He says that's not helping people in Gaza. He says those are people who want to start up a fight. And it's just proof positive again this morning, Stuart. When you see Russia attacking a children's hospital in Kyiv and there's no reaction, none whatsoever, then the reality is that this is not about helping the people of Palestine. It's not about helping Muslims. It's about furthering the cause of anti-Semitism and hate. And if this is, when Russia first invaded Ukraine and they said, oh, okay, we're going to take away from all the oligarchs their money and we're going to stop their investments and we're not going to let Russians go to the Olympics and we're not going to let Russians, participate in all these tournaments and we're not going to whatever, that disappeared. Russians are in the Olympics. They don't have their flag. They're in the Olympics. They're playing sports. They're doing all these things. They forgot. And despite the fact that they've hit they bombed the shit out of a hospital, who cares? Stuart, who cares?
They don't care. And you know what, David? I'm actually so uber happy that you brought this up. And you know what? Van Jones, not my favorite guy. I mean, I'm indifferent to him. His political access is not aligned with mine. And for the first time, he actually publishes something that you and I can identify with. And, it's not that he may not have tried to do this before either, because he did appear with Chuck Schumer on trying to stand with Israel over the insanity from the 7th. But remember, there are no riots in front of any mosques. There are no riots at any schools. You know what? It's almost as ironic as when way back in the early, there was demonstrations at the plaza in D.C. where they showed what happened after the Democrats had a rally for Black Lives Matter and after there was some Republican rally over freedom of life, how one, it was destroyed and the other looked like no one ever was there. And It was both equally right after. I mean, the rules are so skewed over standards that, you know what, I'm going to even twist something else into this rant, David.
Ooh.
Okay, it's not uncommon for me to do that. The world is more obese today than it was 50 years ago. The world is no safer today than it was 50 years ago. Yet you have how many departments and government officials that encourage good eating and safety? Yet you still have the same amount of deaths, probably per capita, and probably obesity at a rate much more than it ever was before. So I guess I'm sort of tired, David, of them trying to say the government is here, you should be feeling safe.
Well, no, but it's bullshit because it's not about the governments. Governments aren't keeping us safe. The opposite. I think governments are screwing us. Allergies. Excuse me. See why we don't edit this thing. So look, here's the reality. It's not about government. It's about society. Because society, it's not just the government. Listen, look what happened just now in France, right? Society, they voted left. The left parties all got together. We're going to go and change everything. Muslims have taken over England, you hear. Muslims have taken over France. You hear all these types of things. That's like, listen, I'm not going to go buy into that. I look at society. I look at what society dictates. And when you permit hate to permeate into your society, as you're seeing in Western society, US, Canada, France, England, Spain, Portugal, other countries like that, then if you allow it to happen to Jews, and we've said this, it's going to happen to other sects. It's not going to stop at the Jews. Jews are always the first one because we're the easiest target.
Well, we're the smallest target as well.
Small target. We're an easy target. Blah blah blah. Okay, and I went through this whole business. I went through this whole business over the weekend explaining to people is like, why us? Why us is because everybody over generations have looked at us as different. We are the enemy. We are unique. We are different. We've ranted about this. I'm not going to get this again. But look at it today, a clear-cut difference in messaging, a clear-cut difference. A sovereign nation attacked a sovereign nation, a hospital with children, no reaction, none. Look, Lebanon has been firing missiles into Israel, displaced 100,000 Israelis, and I mean Arabs, Jews, Muslims, you name it. They've all been displaced in the north. You're not hearing anything. And the United Nations Secretary General, when he hears that there could be a retaliation by Israel, his reaction is, we don't want to turn Lebanon into another Gaza. Anti-Semitism at its best. One more time. So what Van Jones's message, which is very interesting, and I'm impressed with it finally, is that here's a member, a well-respected member of the African-American community who's saying, we got to understand for what it is. We shouldn't tolerate racism. We shouldn't tolerate this. You want to argue about you don't agree with Israel? There's a way to do it. Not this way. And this is what he brought to the table. And the proof that this is really anti-Semitism is just, look what happened with Russia. Look what happened with the Secretary General of the United Nations. These are not people, like did the Secretary General of the United Nations stand up today and absolutely attack Russia for it? No, of course not. Gutierrez won't dare do that. But of course, Jews he's going to go after. Okay. The world media will go after it. You know, last week, Stuart, I applauded BBC. We applauded BBC about their article. Well, guess what? This weekend, they went back to their usual 10 ways of putting Israel in a bad light, and again, Israel this and Israel that, without telling people really the truth of what occurred. It doesn't make a difference. The truth doesn't matter. This is the anti-Semitism that continues to permeate in our society. This is the kind of hate that doesn't seem to want to end. So, Stuart, when you and I are talking about, you know, what should people do? How should people react? Angry. Stuart, angry. Okay?
I mean, I'm looking at you. I'm hearing you. And normally I like to interrupt you and add so much more meat to your rant. But there's really not much more to add.
But Stuart, I'm going to ask you a question.
We're oversimplifying a very complex problem, which, again, in finance, David, I constantly hear these strategies that seem like rocket science, where the rocket scientists that put men on the moon or developed electric cars or coils that can transfer electricity over miles without a line, take it back down to A, B's, and C's. Simple. If you can't explain it, then it's something that probably you shouldn't be doing, because you got to be able to explain it. And there's really no way to explain the vitriol hatred other than what? Jealousy? Soft target? I mean, there's really nothing more to say. I mean, the level of anti-Semitism runs so deep, David, that there's really no other way to describe it. The UN, well, we know it's a banana republic. They'll never outspeak against Russia. Why? Because it's not in their Muslim favor, because Russia, Iran have all bonded together. So, you know, basically they can't speak out against it. But we're not on that rant. We're focusing on 30 plus kids are dead at a children's hospital, and there is silence. And I am actually looking forward to hearing what Van Jones has to say about this tonight on your CNN chat. So we're all those that do CNN, and we got a lot of you on this channel. And I want you to specifically go and look at the media. What does Van Jones got to say today?
Not just Van Jones, anybody. But Stuart, let me put it to you this way, okay? There are people within the African American community, not just Van Jones, thankfully, who have told, you know, others, wake up. You know, Shira Solomon, who is an African American, call it whatever you want. She's a Black Jewish, she calls herself, and she stands up and she's telling people, wake up. Your cause and their cause aren't the same. Like, don't even go there. Okay. And you're using hatred as a way, and you're using this racism as a way to kind of say, oh, yeah, we're together and we're fighting the same cause. You guys aren't. Okay. Wake up. And so let's see today how much the pond can move, how much the needle moves. I don't think it's going to move much. But just for shits and kicks, let's see how many people in the next 48 hours react to Russia versus what Israel has done in the last little bit to try to rescue the 120 hostages that continue to remain after 9 whole months.
Yeah. Let's start being honest with each other. The 120 hostages are 120 corpses. I don't believe any of them are alive.
Stuart, we don't know that, and I won't dare say that. And to the families who are listening, if they are listening, they're praying for their families to come home alive. Yep. I won't go there. But Stuart, they've got to be alive. They have to be alive. Stuart, right. Let's wrap this up.
On that note, David, you had the last word in. And that's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thanks for lending us your ears, your eyes, maybe your nose, because sometimes it stinks, and spending your time with us at the Rant Network. Your thoughts, pleasure, discussions. Your support means the world. Tune in on any of the verticals, whether it's Apple, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. I don't know where else we're publishing it now. I think there's 30 plus podcast places where you can grab this podcast. Or ultimately, we have our own website, rantnetwork.com, where David vigorously posts all this wonderful stuff that we want to put up for you to see where we've come from and where we're going. On that note, David, join us Monday, Wednesday, Friday.